The more brittle we become, the easier to break.
He's a teenager now. Thin, brittle, like a pretzel.
I'm sorry.
Stop it.
You say something, Brittle Bones?
Welcome to this Talk Word Explainer. Today, we are going to dive right into the true meaning, origin, and real-world usage of a really fascinating English word. Whether you're actively learning the language or, just looking to express yourself with pinpoint accuracy, you are absolutely in the right place. We're unpacking a word that sounds sharp, feels very specific, and gets used in incredibly vivid ways. That word is brittle. So let's anchor our minds to a physical reality for a second. Think about this. Why does glass shatter into 1,000 pieces, while a rubber ball just bounces right back? It all comes down to a fundamental difference in the material itself. You see, glass has absolutely zero give. When force is applied to it, it doesn't absorb the shock at all. It just fails entirely. And that core physical property, that total inability to absorb shock without breaking, is exactly the concept we're going to explore today. All right, let's get into Section 1, Defining the Break. Okay, so before we can start using a word to describe complex human emotions, we really need to understand its literal everyday definition. Brittle means hard, but liable to break or snap easily. Now, notice the distinction here. This doesn't mean soft. Actually, it's quite the opposite. It describes something rigid that completely lacks resilience. If you try to bend it even just a little bit, it snaps. You can actually feel this concept in everyday life. Just imagine walking outside in late November. You step down and hear that sudden, sharp crunch of dry autumn leaves under your boots. Or think about the incredibly satisfying snap of a dry cracker when you break it right in half. Hard candy, window glass, dried winter twigs. They're all hard to the touch, but they break with a sudden, violent snap. That specific sensation, that is what it means to be brittle. Now, here's a little nuance that actually traps a lot of language learners. People constantly confuse brittle with fragile, but they really aren't the same thing. Brittle means a hard object that snaps under pressure. Think of a dry pretzel. Fragile, on the other hand, means delicate. It requires careful protection and handling, like a paper-thin crystal wine glass or a really delicate flower. A dry twig is absolutely brittle, but you wouldn't necessarily call it fragile, right? We can understand this even better if we contrast our word with its exact opposite, flexible. Think of a rubber tennis ball. Flexible materials are pliable. They willingly yield, bend, and stretch for you. When you think of brittle, you need to imagine the total absence of that flexibility. It's an uncompromising hardness that leads directly to a breaking point. Moving right along to Section 2, Tracing the Origins. To really cement a word in your memory, it always helps to uncover its etymological roots. Tracing this timeline across the centuries, we can literally hear how the word evolved. Pre-1100s, back in Old English, it was bristle, which literally meant liable to break. Then, in Middle English, it shifted a bit to brittle, before finally settling into the modern English brittle that we use today. So the history of the word is basically baked right into its spelling. Next up, Section 3, Beyond the Literal. So having anchored the physical meaning with twigs and crackers, it's time to expand this into everyday conversational fluency. Notice how brittle pairs just beautifully with human concepts. We talk about a brittle temper, a brittle smile, a brittle relationship, or even a brittle alliance. We're taking that physical concept of hard but easily broken and applying it directly to complex social situations. Just like that dry autumn leaf, these things might look perfectly solid on the surface, but apply just a tiny bit of pressure, and they shatter. Just consider the emotional weight of the word in a sentence like this. Her brittle smile cracked under the immense pressure of the interrogation. Wow, right? It paints such a vivid picture. You instantly know this isn't a warm, relaxed, genuine smile. It's forced. It's rigid and tense. It's someone desperately trying to appear tough and composed, but who is secretly right on the verge of an emotional snap. So the big takeaway here is that when we use this adjective to describe a person or a relationship, we're communicating a really dangerous lack of flexibility. A brittle person lacks warmth, sensitivity, or compassion. They are rigid and so easily stressed. Because they simply cannot handle pressure or bend to accommodate a stressful situation, they might suddenly snap. They essentially lack emotional elasticity. Well, we've successfully journeyed all the way from the physical snap of a dry cracker to the emotional crack of a rigid relationship. If you loved this clear, structured explainer today and want to lock in even more vocabulary, I highly encourage you to check out our companion app, TalkWord. On the TalkWord app, you can listen to incredibly detailed podcast-style explanations of literally any English word you want to master. We break down the meaning, the origins, and give you the exact real-world context you need to sound like a native speaker. The English language is just full of fascinating nuances and endless depth. So I want to leave you with one final thought to really spark your curiosity today. What hidden word is waiting out there right now to totally transform the way you speak and express yourself? Keep learning, keep exploring, and I will catch you in the next explainer.